Thank you, council. Let us pray. Lord, we just thank you today for this opportunity to come together on behalf of the business of the city. We pray for just that this time would be a time that we use our time wisely, that we make decisions that benefit and prosper our city and move us forward in a positive direction. We thank you for everyone that's involved today. Pray that your hand of protection will be over everything that is said, everything that's done, every motion that's made, that it would be what you would do if you were here, Christ. We thank you for that today, and I would give you the praise for everything in Christ's name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Council, your minutes from last month are in your packet. If there are no questions or additions, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. McCoy. There you go. Thank you.
Can you get it up? How do I get it up? Finance report for April. Revenues were $1,365,939. That's 1.15% above our year-to-date projections. Sales tax receipts, $663,054. Franchise fees and permits, $513,966. Expenditures, total expenditures $954,819,000, 3.95% below our projection. We've received $171,626 more receipted than expended. Street revenues $160,452, 12% below our year-to-date projection. Sales tax receipts $44,227. Our new half cent was $57,708. Street expenditures, operation expenditures $131,805. That's 11.6% below our projections. Sales tax improvements was $75,626. Capital expenditures were $377,181. Economic development revenues were $20,908, $15,759 in new sales tax, $5,149 in interest. Expenditures were $37,188. Capital assets revenues were $552,799. $537,438 was the new sales tax, $10,959 on airport grant, $4,402 in interest. Expenditures, $33,831 in parks, police, and the airport. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. McCoy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Commission appointments. We've been asked to reappoint Mr. Gerald Hook to the Historic District Commission.
Mayor, I move that we reappoint Mr. Hook to that commission. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. For the mayor's report, I want to talk about a couple of things, just examples of things that happen all the time around here. I guess it was back in January or February, Mr. Holstein and his liaison, Mr. Stuber, and I were just talking about operations in his department. We got to talking about back when ConAgra was adding on their big expansion that went on a couple of years ago. Brian told a story about doing an inspection out there one day of a 1,000-foot long gas line ran across the top of the building. And it took him all day long to do it. You can translate that into all of the other things that we have going on a regular basis around here, and you can see why Mr. Holstein is always here early, and he's always here late, and he's almost never here in spite of that, because he's out constantly trying to deliver his services at a really, it's an almost OCD rate. He doesn't like for anybody to have to wait. Another example related to him, back in December, last week of December, I believe it was, a local realtor called, and because of the holidays and people being off, he was waiting on a building permit or some kind of a deal to make a deal go through that the buyer on the property really needed to happen before the end of December. I forget all the details, but he went way above and beyond to get that whole thing answered that day so that the sale could go through for tax purposes, so that Chairman Tripp, you'll remember this one. Was that not for the Med Express building that's almost complete out there 5 months later? That's going to be a nice addition to our town. It's kind of important that got done. So that's just one thing. And then those of you that sat through our finance meeting earlier, you'll recall that in several spots in there, the discussion ran a little bit long because we are all very, very cognizant of how important every dollar that goes through here is right now. I mean, we were talking about watering for sports fields. You know, that's not just an idea that came up. That's a city our size, with our reputation. When you travel around to the rest of the state, that's what's expected of you. It's not good enough now just to have grass out there to play on. You got to have good grass, and that takes good water. Last year, we decided that that took good fertilizer and good pre-treatment and a lot of stuff. And it's a commitment from the conversation, I think all of us share, that we have to provide services at the highest level if we want to maintain our level of respect for cities our size. But there's a cost related to all of that, and those costs keep going up. It's not always about adding a new park. It's about more cost to maintain the park that we have now. It's not always about giving a raise to the people we have now in our police, fire, every department. We have a cost of living just like you do at home, and it has things that drive that cost up over time. And that's why last week at the Finance Committee meeting, Mr. McCoyne broached a subject that's been debated back and forth a little bit. Most of us on the inside know about revenues, how to enhance revenues. We threw out a couple of different ideas, one of them being a millage, which fell flat on its face. The other one was a sales tax that so far is not getting a lot of support. But I don't think the whole story's been told. I don't think we've gone into all of the different things that sales tax and that additional revenue would provide. It's not stuff that we just want to do, and it's not just to give our people a raise. Our operational costs continue to increase to deliver the services we deliver at the rate that the citizens of Russellville expect and deserve. I've laid a chart out here tonight. We may be able to put it on the screen. It shows in comparison. This chart is, frankly, it's the best group that represents the cities in our state that we are constantly being challenged to deliver product the same way that they do, at the same level that they do. Most of these, if you'll notice, all of these are much bigger cities than us, but that's the standard we're held to. If you'll look, all but one of them, our sales tax rate is lower or equal to all but one. Conway's a little bit lower, but if you'll look at the column on the left, all of these other cities also have a millage in place. Nobody is suggesting that we do both. I personally, this is just me, and it's an item that the council is going to have to work out, but I don't think that it's a good idea for us to get into the millage business, but I think it is time. If we're going to continue to deliver our services at the level that people expect, we have to have a very real discussion about our revenues. I'm excited as I can be, and I think everybody in here would agree with me about the Med Express we just mentioned, about several new restaurants, at a number of new hotels. This is just the items that we currently have paperwork on. These are confirmed projects. They're coming. Some of them are almost done. And the rumor mill is really cranked up right now about other stuff that's in development. It's very close. But the reality is, if all of that comes through, it will help us continue at the level we're at now. It does not refill the building maintenance fund that Jerry mentioned earlier. It doesn't fund major increases in equipment like mowers that the Parks Department is requesting now. They need to replace a mower. It's going to have to wait. Capital is off until something else happens. I think what's being proposed is reasonable and responsible, and I hope that in the months coming up, we can have a real discussion about it. It's not really what any of us want. I really wish the story ended in a different way, but I don't think anybody up here believes that that's what they were put here for, to give people the answer they want to hear. And that'll conclude my report for tonight. Department report will be Mr. Bill Clark of Code Enforcement.
I'm going to keep this real short. The year-to-date incidents that we have done in the office have been 316, and we have closed 258. Of those 316, we've opened 63 on grass, weeds, yard debris, which includes the tree limbs that have been falling and just stacked up in people's yards. We've opened up 13 cases for property maintenance, which involves people fixing up houses that aren't at the dilapidated state yet, but they will become so if they don't put some funds into their houses. We've had 29 vehicles that I've addressed that require either to be currently tagged or removed from their property. The junk, garbage, trash, rubbish, old appliances, I've had 78 of those cases. A lot of these cases come during the winter time because that number for grass and weeds at 63 is going to expand quite quickly. I'm getting calls every day on neighbors not mowing their grass and letting things grow wild. I've had 61 zoning violations. Majority of those have been things from people parking trailers in the front part of their house, big trucks being parked in residential zones which aren't allowed, and then in dilapidated structures, I've opened up 5 this year, but we've also closed 5, thanks to the help of the council this year also. And one other thing, we've had 39 cases on obstructing roadways. A lot of that has dealt with people placing their trash containers and recycle bins out in the road instead of just at the curb, which affects the people's ability to drive through some of these streets. And also basketball goals, I've had some issues with those that have been placed out in the street and left. And those obviously are obstructing our roadways. So if y'all don't have any questions, that concludes the report.
Does anybody have any questions, Mr. Clark?
Mr. Clark, are you having trouble finding anything to do?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good report.
Thank you. Committee reports. Chairman Tripp, does anybody on your commission need us to bring up an oxygen tank from downstairs, or are you ready to go?
It was kind of lengthy, Mayor, and I'll
You've had a
try to
busy
give
day.
this report as quickly as I can.
Thank you.
Item number 1 on your agenda tonight underneath the Finance Committee report, I believe we established earlier that this is still at the Finance Committee level, so I'll go on to item number 2. Item number 2, I believe, was just a discussion that Mr. McCoy gave us pertaining to your mayor's report of income and revenues and potential other sources for income. Number 3, appropriations for community development for $960. Number 4, parks, appropriation $40,000 passed through to Orbit Lane. Number 5, appropriation administrative for other professional services, $300. Item number 6, capital fund, moving $500,000 into the new fire station fund. Number 7, again, capital fund, moving $500,000 into the aquatic center fund. And now those items were passed by the Finance Committee, and I present them in form of a motion to the council.
Council, you heard the committee's recommendation in motion. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Chairman?
Number 8 and 9 deal with the new animal shelter project, doing a building addition, adding a building to the site there. It was passed by the Finance Committee to bring before the full council and recommend of a motion to accept the bid from Ford Engineering and for the appropriation of additional $50,000 from the original appropriation, I believe, $100,000 to bring that total up to $150,000.
Okay, you heard the motion. That's for items 8 and 9. Is there any questions or discussion?
Mayor, I do have a couple questions on this.
Okay.
I asked Mrs. Collins for this, if she could find it. When did the council ever send this out to bid? When did the council ever approve a contract with the architect? When did the council, we've been very stringent lately, making sure that all T's are crossed, I's are dotted on things, but just not sure. I'm questioning as a council member here how we even got to this point if the council didn't approve the bids to go out, for it to go out to bid. We didn't have I believe 130-something thousand, 150 is for the building, and then there's some additional money for some other people, Mr. McCoy had said. So I'm just asking for clarification how all that came about to where we are today.
Well, let's see. The deal with the architect, we did, I guess, by motion last year. I don't know that we specifically said what architect to say. We just approved doing the project last year. They got the plans ready earlier this year, and are you suggesting should we bring them back to the committee and let them decide?
I was just curious because everything else we've done it a certain way, and it seems like this one was not done the same way. And I'm for the project,
Yeah.
but I would like for there not be any room for someone to say, why didn't y'all do that? Why didn't y'all follow your process on this?
You're probably correct on that. It was a little bit different. The first bid came in quite a bit out of what was budgeted. There had been a lot of changes in it. The department head, myself, Mr. Stuber, the liaison, and Mr. Holstein had some discussions over a period of time, looking for ways to bring it back down to what we thought it would bring it back down to the original amount, and that did not happen even on these bids.
If Mr. Smith says we're okay, I'm fine. I just wanted to ask how we got to where we are today, so that maybe that doesn't happen again.
You know, we got to where we are today back, I don't know, way back last year. The city council appropriated $100,000 for this purpose. And ultimately, there was an architect hired, and plans were drawn, and they were overdrawn, obviously, and the bids, it was put out for bids, and the bids, you know, like the mayor said, came in $200,000 range. So of course, when this initially was talked about, it was talked about as being a metal type structured building, you know, with facilities inside it, and we went. The reason the bids got so high the first time, we went from a metal building to a masonry constructed building, and you know, with a composition shingle roof on it, and it was attached to the old building, and so you know, and we backed up and went to what initially was talked about, a detached metal building, and that's where we are today. Now, that doesn't answer your question of how it got there, you know, but it did.
I was thinking that after that first round of bids got back and it was so far out of line, I thought that we had, in one of our meetings, that the council voted to reject all those bids and to rebid. I probably should have come back to you before we rebid it. We can throw these out again and do that.
Again, if Mr.
'Cause they're
Smith says
over.
we're fine, I'm okay with it. I just wanted to make sure that we're following our process. You know, we went through an in-depth process selecting construction management recently. We did an in-depth process on selecting the architect for the fire station. You know, very detailed work along those lines, and I just hope that we do that all the way across all of our projects. Again, if Mr. Smith says we're okay to proceed, I'm fine with that. I do not want to obstruct the process of this project. However, I want us to follow our own rules.
I'd like to see that done too.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
are we okay in proceeding, you know, where we are today?
Well, it's hard to say. I don't know the whole factual situation. You've got a project that's $100,000 or over, so an architect's required by state law. I don't know if anybody sent out any RFQs to ascertain architects that were available or wanted to do this. Not sure if they were interviewed. I don't know if we can produce a contract to even know what we're paying the person. So it is concerning, but again, there may be things out there that I'm just not aware of because I wasn't told.
There is a contract out there. My recollection of this whole thing was there was a discussion regarding what we anticipated was going to be not an extremely expensive project, and they there was a recommendation that we use a local architect, and that architect was requested to give us some recommendations, which we got. And then it went from there to the bidding process, went through all of that, and then it was rejected as Mr. Horton or Mr. Stuber said. All of those bids were rejected at the council's request, and we turned around and rebid it.
When I had asked Mrs. Collins just if she had any of this, she did not. Well, she was unable to find it, so that's what my concern was. Again, if Mr. Smith says we're okay to proceed, then let's proceed. I just wanted to bring up that question.
Is that, I guess you're asking me, all I could say is, at a minimum, we should be able, if there's a contract, we should be able to produce it. If there's not, then I think we need to get one, because you don't have any terms defined with the expenses of the architect, and does anybody know what we're obligated to pay the man? Anybody?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
Right, but usually they take it on a percentage. Do we know what
That's
percentage?
correct.
Is it 9, 10, 20? I know I have not.
The last of my recollection, it was like 8%, if I'm not mistaken, that was presented to us.
That's about right.
Is that verbally?
No, that was in writing.
Okay.
Yes, we did have that.
So it can be produced.
Well, I don't know whether it can be produced or not, but I know that there was such a document, because we had discussions about that in the meetings with the architect leading up to the point before he made any effort to design this.
Well, I'd like to review it just to see it, but I mean, if it's in place, then that would be good to go from there.
Would the best way to clean this up be to table these until one of the 2 meetings we've got coming up, or till next month's meeting?
Yes.
Does anybody want to make a motion to
I'll
do
make
that?
a motion, we table this till the next meeting, on the 4th.
Items 8 and 9.
Yes.
Doesn't need to be seconded?
Yeah, that can work. So we have a second from Mr. Roberts.
We're having a meeting.
All in favor of tabling 8 and 9?
Yeah.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, I guess we should have cleared that up. Table for when, Mr.
The
Vaughn?
4th.
4th? Yeah, correct.
Mayor, am I ready to
Yes,
proceed?
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Item number 10, consideration of resolution of intent to finance improvements to the water and sewer system and to refund an outstanding water and sewer revenue bond. That was, I believe, passed with intent from the Finance Committee to present to the full council in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Any questions?
I'll just answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Wright basically discussed it at the finance meeting. I think most if not all, you were in attendance there. So it's fairly clear cut. Just authorize the city staff to work with the bond folks to move forward with the process. It allows us to be reimbursed for expenses we have up to that point. And then the last item just reminds us that we will come back to you folks with the final terms on June 4th with the final bond ordinance at that time. That's basically all this does. And our board passed a very similar ordinance on Monday night, basically stating the same items.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mallett, does this pertain to the existing bond we did a year or 2 ago? Is that,
It does allow us the opportunity to refinance that, and we've decided that would be in our best interest, both financially and because of future debt issuances. It would clean it up quite a bit to do that. So we are going to recommend that we do that and roll that into this issuance, so we'll have one debt issuance on our books.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was
It's from the finance.
by the
committee.
Finance Committee, yeah,
I'm sorry.
in the motion. Mr.
Item
Chairman.
number 11, consideration of resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk treasurer to sign a lease agreement with Arkansas Tech University for the lease of lands to extend the city trail system. This again was passed by the finance committee to recommend for the full council in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item number 12, consideration of an ordinance repealing ordinance 678 regulating parades and other similar use of public places. This was also passed by the finance committee to recommend to the full council in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion or questions?
Exactly what does this mean? Is this what the chief brought to us?
Goes along hand in hand with it. This repeals the old ordinance. Then deciding on the new one will be a separate issue.
Do we need
Okay.
to repeal this before
Or it
we
will
do a
be,
new one?
okay.
No, this is the same one.
Is this it?
Yes. This is the,
The special event ordinance?
yeah, it repeals.
This puts in the new ordinance?
It does it all, yes.
Well, we have
Okay,
something
then we
else.
tabled
me?
that one.
They're
Under
one
that
and the same.
that wasn't my impression at the finance committee meeting.
If you look
Mr.
at,
Smith, does this put a new ordinance in effect?
yes, finance number 12 puts in place the special event permit and repeals in section 22 of the ordinance 678.
If it,
So-
Mayor, if it does that, I want to make a motion. I want to make a motion, we suspend the rules and read by title only with short explanation, and for reading of the first reading, and we'll bring it back next month to vote on it. Because the A&P is going to look at this tomorrow, and we have moved this meeting up, and the A&P did not have a chance to look at this, and this is going to affect A&P's commission more than it is anything else. Because the A&P brings a lot of things to town.
Well, at our, can I speak?
Please.
At our finance meeting we just had, we made a motion to, get like a subcommittee to review this before moving forward on this. And that would include having Christy Graham and Betsy McGuire from Main Street and a couple of council people serve on this subcommittee to make sure that we are trying to satisfy everyone, and that includes those event planners that bring these events into town. And it's just to get some order to all of this,
Yes.
since the number has grown so much. But at this point, I'm a little confused myself here, because I thought we had decided to do a committee first.
Mayor, I think I misspoke. I read that, but I don't think the finance committee took action on that.
You're
Would this have been at the end of the deal?
Yes,
after-
because we'd
Okay.
lost Mr. Eaton had
Okay.
to leave before the meeting's over, and we did not have a quorum. I think this was on here by
Okay, so
accident,
this
by
is
mistake.
only by mistake?
Yes.
Okay,
So
good.
we'll disregard here and move on to your
Okay.
agenda from tonight.
I apologize for not catching that before. At our finance committee meeting prior to this meeting, we had a few more items. Discussion of a White Oak Lane drainage repair project in the amount of $306,000. That was passed by the finance committee and recommended form of a motion for the full council.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any questions or discussions? In that case, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next item is appropriation, police department pass-through reimbursement from a postage meter sent back, money left in the machine, $89.93. That was recommended by the Finance Committee to present to the full council in the form of a motion.
You heard the motion. Any discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next is just as an update, Finance Committee is going to have Mr. Harris prepare some RFQs for the master zoning plan to present, to send out, and the funding for that. And that was, Mr. Eaton made that motion that passed by the full committee to present that as a item and the funding to go with it. Funding necessary for the advertisement of it. And that's presented to the council in the form of a motion.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next on our list, and I promise we're almost done, discussion of special event ordinance. This, I think, is where the confusion was a second ago. The committee made a recommendation to form a subcommittee of the council and a few other people, like Mrs. McGuire and Mrs. Graham from the A&P Commission, and 3 council members, and that was recommended by the committee to present in form of a motion to the council to take the existing ordinance, to have some public input and work through this and bring it back to the council.
May I ask who the council members are going to be?
We'll do that as soon as this is voted on.
Okay.
Okay, you heard the motion, and you heard Mr. Tripp's reply that we'll name the members after we pass this or don't, or fail. So if there's any other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Is it open, and whomever to make that?
May I suggest that myself and Ms. Harris be on that committee, because we're both on A&P and I'm the liaison for the police department.
And Mr. Wiley, I would like to add maybe either Mr. Roberts or Mr. Eaton as the third member of that, if you would take that amendment to your motion.
I just suggested us two. The third one doesn't make me any difference who the council wants.
Mr. Eaton has experience with it from
Yes.
previous and getting it to this point. Mr. Roberts has, a little bit of experience just, I think, from some events and so forth.
Well, I will waive the suggestion of me and leave it to Spence, since he is downtown where his business is affected when the streets are closed. And that's, some of those things are some of my concerns, so I would be happy to not serve if you want to serve, or I will be happy to serve.
I will be happy to serve with you, or if you, either way.
Okay?
Mr. Smith, can we amend that and make it 4 members and make it Mr. Eaton, Mr. Roberts, and Ms. Harris and Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Okay. Make that motion. Yes.
You heard the motion to amend the original motion. We'll make it 4 members. The 4 members will be Mr. Alderman Wiley, Alderwoman Harris, Alderman Roberts, Alderman Eaton. Is that correct? Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Chairman.
All right, next on our item, consideration of resolution to accept the lowest bid from Dusty Roads Incorporated in the amount of $467,486 for the Depot Park Pavilion project. And the item following that is the appropriation of $52,486 to our previous appropriated amount to total the $467,486. From moving that from Economic Development Fund, I believe 3, into that fund. That was passed by the Finance Committee and recommended to the full council in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, I think that concludes
Okay?
the report.
You want to catch your breath, or you? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 1 of old business, consideration of a resolution requiring the rehabilitation by agreement for 408 South Arkansas.
Mayor, city council members.
We need a motion and a second on that, don't we?
motion?
We do.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Frankhouse?
Yes, we had a building on 408 South Arkansas that caught fire about 2 months ago. Just as of last week, the insurance company has finished their reports and issued us a check to rebuild the building. Our plans are to demolish the back third of the building and rebuild back the building itself. Up until getting that check here last week, there wasn't much we could do to get the ball rolling on that, but we plan on getting an engineer involved as far as drawing up the plans to rebuild the building itself.
Mayor, I'd like to hear from Mr. Holstein on this.
Is Mr. Holstein here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there he is. The good-looking guy at the back of the room.
Yes, I have any questions.
Does it have asbestos shingles on that building? I believe it does.
I can't specifically answer that question, but that question will be answered
I believe it does.
in the future. If Mr. Frank House wants to rehabilitate that building, it was greater than 50% as far as the structure is concerned. So it has to meet the 2012 building code for boarding house.
Okay.
And that will require architects, professional drawings, stamp drawings approved by the city, and then he would be able to move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, the motion is to require rehabilitation by agreement. You understand the agreement deal you've done?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
Okay, so, council?
Can I make?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Holstein.
I would like to let the council be aware that 6 months is the agreement stands for our rehabilitation agreement. I don't see it happening in 6 months. I really believe that to have a set of drawings, have an architect involved, to be able to create the drawings, to submit drawings for approval for the rehabilitation of the structure. We're not in the 6 month frame. So if we look at this and allow this, we may have to be looking at a more extended term than our 6 month agreement that we have. Now, if that's doable, that may be a question for Trey, but
That's a question for Mr. Smith.
Well, we have a standard contract, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not only 6 months, but there's certain benchmarks to be made within those 6 months, correct?
that's correct.
Do you see those benchmarks even being made?
Not with the rehab agreement, no.
So either we would draw up a special agreement that would give more time, if that's what the council wants, or the other thing is removing it. If, I'm not sure what the opinion of yours is, Mr. Holstein or Mr. Clark's, about the feasibility of this thing being rehabilitated.
May I ask a question, Mr. Smith?
Sure.
If we do something of that nature, make a special agreement here, does that open us up to,
Well,
in the future, every time something doesn't appear to fit within
Sure will.
the
Well, you-
procedure that we have, we're going to have to make a special,
Yeah.
you'll just have other people wanting the same
Wanting the same
treatment,
thing.
probably, and
yeah.
and so I'm just giving the options, but that's the drawback, yes.
Could I say something?
Mr. Frankhouse.
This is a multi-family dwelling and not a single-family home. And Mr. Holstein, when I was talking to him today, told me it could take me up to 2 months to get the drawings done to redo it, other than the fact, rather than just being able to get started on the project, I've got to have a complete set of drawings done and approved before I can start on it. If it was a single-family home, we could get started on it right away. But they won't allow us to do that until we get these drawings done by an engineer, and that could take a while. That's where the delayed time might take, is just getting the drawings done to redo the building. not redoing it, but getting them.
And this is gonna have to be sprinklered, this is gonna have to be,
Yes, based on volume 2 of our building code, any R residence except single-family duplex and townhouse has to be a sprinkled building.
sir, do you have the, I don't have a question.
I think the unforeseen also would be, is if we have a lot of asbestos in this building, then that has to be abated before anything can move forward also.
Can you bring that report back to us next month if it's got asbestos in it or not?
That would be, if we choose to raise the building, our city attorney falls within a contract to someone who goes out and inspects that for asbestos. That's who will give us the report.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's if you vote to have the building raised.
Right, but that process, that only will occur after the times have lapsed for him either to rehab, sign an agreement, or the 30 days for him to remove it himself. So then at that point, after that 30-day period is when I will send out for an asbestos survey to see what we're dealing with in removing it. So we won't, unless Mr. Frankhouse does one, the only way we're gonna do it is after the decisions have been made, basically by law, that we have to remove it.
Sir, have you been in contact with the attorney? Have you been in contact with our attorney trying to resolve this?
No, I have not.
Why have you not been in? If that's my building, I would have been in contact with the attorney.
Well, until I get done with the insurance company, until they finalized their reports and issued us a check, we didn't have any money to go ahead with redoing the building.
Well, I'm in favor of that 6 months. If we can't get it done in 6 months, I'm not in favor of extending the 6 months term.
Was this structure within the code enforcement radar prior to the fire? It was already on the list, already. It's had issues, but was it already being identified as a? Okay. So it was stated a while ago that this could potentially open us up to a different or however, but this also is a little bit of a unique situation for one that I think we've dealt with in the past because this has recently had a structure fire. So does it need a little different attention to it? Does it need something more so than the standard 6 months? Because I think that 6 month process was developed to go into a house building structure as is and rehab it. And I think this might be a little bit greater, a little bit larger of a undertaking than what our 6 month process really allows for.
Sir, would you be better off to tear the whole thing down and start all over?
I don't feel that's what I'd like to do. It's a historic building. It goes back to the late 1800s when it was built. I'd rather keep as much of it as I can.
Mr. Smith, in that agreement that was prepared and the work done on that, was there any differentiation in any form of structure relative to that, whether it would be commercial, residential, multi-dwelling, whatever the case may be?
No, it is not. It's just kind of a one-size-fits-all.
That's what I was thinking.
Of course, if I may, it would be my opinion that at the very least, his clock should start ticking after he gets plans drawn and approved and all that, because, that's gonna take several months right there. You know, these architects don't, you know, they're not sitting around waiting for you to hand them something to do. And then, you know, then you got to get them approved. That takes a little time. So, you know, I don't really see how we could throw this in the same class as a residential type structure where you don't need all this. To where, you know, if he signed an agreement tomorrow morning, he could start tomorrow afternoon, you know. But he can't do that here. Regardless of what the ordinance says, you know, I think maybe at this point I can look back and see where maybe we should have incorporated something like this in the initial ordinance. But hindsight's 20/20.
I just have a thought. In looking at the building, it was, and I could be wrong, to me it was originally designed as a home.
It was.
And altered. That's just a thought.
It was a home. Big, big home. It was made into an apartment house.
Of course, you can look around Russellville, and there's numerous structures that was designed for one thing, for a certain thing, for homes, and now they're no telling what is incorporated inside those structures. I mean, you know, yes, I agree, it was a home. At one time, a quite elaborate home, obviously.
Does anybody have a motion?
We had a motion and a second, didn't we? Where are we with that?
That was just,
I'd have to be reminded of that original motion.
Motion to consider, I think. I don't know that we have a motion to do.
Approve.
I don't remember.
Don't know, but a motion to consider is.
Who made the original motion?
I made the original
Would you
motion.
restate your motion for us, Mr. Wiley, please?
I made a motion that we either agree with him or we don't agree with him. We either agree to let him have the time or we don't. That's what it says right here, remove our, I'm gonna make my motion over. I'm gonna make a motion that we give him 6 months after he turns in his, architect drawings.
What length, now, I can't even address that yet.
How long are you going to allow him to get the architect?
That's what I was gonna ask,
2
but
months.
we don't have them.
So 2 months for the architect drawings and then 6 months thereafter.
In 8 months from now, it should be done.
That includes
That includes everything. If he can't do it in 8 months, we're giving him 2 months extra.
I want to make sure I understand from my department. That you're asking him to sign the rehab agreement after tonight, or how's that? I don't know how that's playing out right there.
I don't know how, that's up to the attorney. I don't know when he needs to sign it, but we're going to give him 8 months. Pardon me?
No, we have to get him to sign it.
What is it, Mayor?
Mr. Smith's got a recommendation,
Okay.
I think.
If y'all want to, if giving him additional time is what you want, I can restructure the contract to reflect that. I just need to kind of have some guidelines of what much time you want, and we can rewrite it if that's what majority of the council wants to do.
Could we table this till the meeting we're having on the 9th? Mr. Frankhouse, you need to get with Mr. Smith, work out something that works. Can you do that?
Yes, I'd like to also meet with Brian and Bill too,
Okay.
because they're gonna know.
Let's do
they can-
that.
They can make some benchmarks if that's what the majority wants to do.
But you need to have a discussion with an architect, figure out what it's gonna take to fix it, have some idea of whether you really still wanna bite that off, but, then get back with all 3 of these guys. That would be one suggestion. It's up to the council how you wanna do it.
That's good, man.
I'll move on.
Well, we need a, yes.
We're
We need
tabling
a
this.
motion to table to the 9th with those instructions.
Motion. Table to the 9th.
Second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Roberts. All in favor? Any opposed?
We can be here all night on that.
Oh, item 2, discussion of premium protein products.
Boy, they're back again.
At last week's meeting, I think we all pretty much agreed we'd had 4 or 5 bad days in a row.
We had a bad one today, too.
We've had no feedback from them that regarding, they sent us the SOPs, their new standard operating procedures. There's been no feedback as to whether those are implemented now, if there's still work to be done. There was nothing in that that indicated that they were even intending to do any capital improvements, which most people believe is going to be necessary to make a meaningful change out there. It's the council's decision how they want to handle it, but Mr. Smith has an ordinance, I believe all of you have a copy of it, that would provide a means of dealing with this. Mr. Smith, do you want to hit some highlights on it?
This would set up an enforcement mechanism for odors that emanate from any type of facility, and it sets up 2 separate ways of how an odor generator can be cited. One is objectively through a scintometer of some sort. To do that, though, we would have to buy such a device and then also train somebody to be certified in it, making those measurements. The other way is just is subjective in that getting a certain amount of complaints within a certain time period that would cause the enforcement person to go out and check and see if there is an odor there and cite as well. Right now, I've got that. I think I have it set at.
Are we yet where we can discuss this?
Yes.
Okay. My question would be relative to the ordinance. This odor generator particularly that we're talking about, I have no idea how much that would cost. You'd have to have a trained personnel involved with that, certified, I'm sure, to operate it. I don't know what department that would fall under. If that became code enforcement, it would appear to me to be something of that nature. But, I think it's time that we do something beyond getting letters and that seem to be only letters. I'd like to have some kind of idea what something of this nature would cost us for the equipment, the training, and the licensing, if it requires a license, which I would assume something of that nature does.
I'm not sure about the licensing, but there will be cost involved. That's the trade-off. You have an objective measurement, but you have to have somebody trained and buy the equipment. And subjectively, if there's 10 or more complaints within a 5-day period relating to the same source, that's the subjective part of having that odor generator cited. But I can get those costs. I think they have more than one type of I guess they'll know as olfactometer as well.
With this ordinance in hand, is it appropriate to take any action on that as it was listed here this evening in regarding to PPP?
Right, if we want to review the ordinance more, it's fine with me. I've been,
Well, what I'm recommending is that we approve reading this ordinance one time and let it follow the normal procedures without emergency clauses or anything of that nature, and that we move forward with this. And if that's within our purview at this time, I make that recommendation.
it is.
By title only?
Title only,
Okay.
read it one time.
All right, the motion is that we read by suspend the rules, read one time by title only for the first reading only. That means we'll bring it back next month. We'll get these details on cost of monitoring equipment, but I would love nothing more than to forward this to Premium Protein in the morning and say, the council has had a first reading on this ordinance, with your permission. We have a second from Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Can I
Yes,
do, I know I'm just repeating what everybody is thinking. When we send them, can we not just send them some sort of letter of demand? It bothers me that they've totally ignored us. Demand after demand, request after request, they just ignore us. Do we have something ironclad in this ordinance that will allow us to go out there and put a lock on that front gate? I know that sounds severe, but, am I just far-fetched here? But I'm for reading this ordinance, and the sooner we get something done, the better. But in the meantime, I just wish we could had some force that we could say, this is our community.
It just prescribes a fine. At this time, we cannot pass a law just to lock them up. However, that is something that we could look at down the road about doing a civil injunction of some sort if this doesn't resolve it, which would keep them from operating unless they could demonstrate that no odor was going to be produced by their operations.
Well, I think this is a first step.
It is a first step.
And we have not
It's a good.
proceeded this far before. I'd like for us to do that.
Mayor, can I ask a question, and this might be a question for Mr. Smith, and I really don't know how to ask this, and but I think it at least needs to be asked and considered. Even today, I received a comment about this issue, and even how that there's a facility not too far down the road as a crow flies that probably has some odor issues also. So is this will apply across the board, correct?
Well, if you're talking about that, I guess, facility down the same road, because it's, is it the same?
Well,
is it equipment that's being used? Is it city equipment that's being used by another?
Yes.
Well, that's been exempted out.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
But if there were other plants that generated odor, this would not kick in until they'd had X number of days, X number of complaints. Is that correct?
For now, that'll be the only way is for now until we look at possibly getting some type of meter.
Yeah.
So that's why the other's in there is just to kind of be a stopgap until we have somebody that's trained in the equipment.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to read one time, or for the first reading only, by title only. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Smith?
An ordinance prohibiting nuisance odors occurring in the city of Russell, Arkansas, prescribing a penalty, establishing definitions, set up procedure to receive and investigate odor complaints, empowering certain officials to enforce this ordinance exempting certain entities or other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would set up the definitions to regulate and also prohibit certain odors that generated within the city limits from any building, facility, or for any process. Would require them to have the best available control technology to operate, to regulate any type of odor emission, sets up a reporting mechanism, and empowers certain officials to enforce and cite such odors, and sets out a penalty enforcement of where, if a facility was cited, where they would go to the proper venue to be heard in court.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Does council have any objection with us sending that to the operator tomorrow?
I would certainly make that recommendation. If we need a motion for you to do that, I'm all for it.
Thank you. New business 1, consideration of discussion of the amendment to the zoning code concerning RVs and boat storage. Mr. Harris.
Section 3.12 of the zoning code, we will have, that pertains to this, we will have suggested amendments to that in the zoning, planning commission agenda for June. So I don't anticipate that it'll be dealt with in 1 month, though. I think I told you earlier that in the 5 or 6 years that I was here before Mr. Clark came, I'd only gotten one individual that complained about RVs or boats. But since we've kind of been talking about it, I've probably had 6 or 8 people that have called, and essentially what they've said is, yeah, they were unhappy, but they didn't think there was anything they could do about it. But we will get a very many diverging opinions about what's the appropriate level of control. So, but it will be on the planning commission agenda to at least get started figuring out what's what.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Harris?
No, that's good.
Item 2, consideration of an ordinance to approve the Aspen Commercial Park subdivision. This is located at I-40 exit ramp in Aspen Lane.
Move to suspend the rules, read one time by title only.
Second.
You heard a motion and a second. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Does that have discussion?
I guess so.
As far as the motion to suspend the rules,
Well, I have wanted discussion about
about the ordinance itself.
the ordinance, yes.
Did we vote
Yes.
to suspend the rules?
No, we didn't vote
Okay.
yet.
We'll vote to suspend the rules first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Aspen Commercial Park subdivision, accepting the dedication of the easements to the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would accept the final plat and all the easements and dedications contained within that plat of the known as Aspen Commercial Subdivision, Park Subdivision, that is attached as Exhibit A to this ordinance.
Now, discussion?
Discussions?
There's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there is a proposal going before the planning commission on this particular piece of property for a hotel. And I'm just curious with this, with the way it's platted for a sign there on, I guess, plat number 3, is that going to interfere with that development, or is that part of
No.
the development?
No, that had to be approved separately because of the sign ordinance. And Mr. Harris can explain that a little bit more, but we approved that previously.
When they brought the subdivision the first time, they just had 2 lots, which we could have administratively approved because they both had frontage on Aspen Lane. But they, at the time, they already intended to do the billboard, and they were just going to put it on parcel 1. But our code requires that a billboard be on its own standalone parcel. So when they created the 3rd lot, it was not going to have frontage. So we can't administratively approve a subdivision that includes a lot with no frontage. So it's pretty straightforward. They just want that 3rd lot for the billboard as they're required to do by the code. But we can't administratively approve that third lot because
So
it does
is
not
this
have.
billboard for the proposed hotel, or is this
No,
billboard?
the billboard will be an off-premise sign. It'll be just a regular billboard.
So is
for
it
some-
going to interfere with the development of this property?
I mean, it's the
and-
same folks that are,
Okay, that's my question.
they were
I
gonna
wouldn't
have
want
it on
to
the par-
approve the billboard if it's going to block
Right.
their facility
right.
such that it hinders their,
But like I say, initially, they were gonna have it on the same parcel. They're just simply not allowed to, so they had to subdivide for the third lot.
thank you.
Any other questions?
So we're okay with that?
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Call the roll.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It does. Yes, it's got one if we want to enact it. Yeah.
They don't need it, do they?
Is Greg Long here? I haven't heard any discussion about it, so. All right. In that case, item 3, consideration of a resolution for approval of a special use permit to allow an auto repair shop. This is subject to adding a 24-foot wide by 30-foot deep approach apron, property located at 3422 Bernice Avenue. Unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission.
Motion. Second.
Discussion.
Who did the second on that?
Okay.
Discussion, Mr. Harris.
There's, I guess, the planning commission did discuss the fact that this particular property does not meet zoning code for paving requirements. They've allowed that to go forward, but I have some concerns. We as a city always tend to modify and allow deviations from our zoning codes. I'm not even sure why we have zoning codes, because the first person that comes up that it's inconvenient for, we'll just let them go forward. So that just continues to bother me a little bit.
Well, let me share a couple of things that was discussed during that meeting, and Mr. Jones might want to make a comment in regard to that as well. He is here. This was considering the location of this. The building is vacant now. There is a particular apron there, and we just passed an ordinance relative to the adjacent business, and we don't anticipate that there's going to be a great deal of desirability to come in and develop this property at a great expense. And the owners that want to do that are here. They've agreed to this particular item that was added to the requirements to meet this, and I thought the discussion was extremely good, and it's certainly not as unusual as some of the other things that I've seen passed here that are quite unusual in the past. So I don't know, Mr. Jones, did you want to say anything, or the owners, they are here relative to this request?
I'll make one quick comment, because I think I was the one that brought up or suggested that the Planning Commission consider adding as a condition the paving of the driveway there. Now, it was my understanding that, as the building stood, if it did not require a special use permit, that it could be occupied and used as is. I'm not sure that that's entirely correct, and Mr. Smith can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But regardless, the bottom line is, I think that as Mr. Eaton pointed out, it's proximity to the issue that y'all just discussed is going to probably limit interest in this particular site. And my personal opinion is that it would be better for the city to have a business occupying this structure rather than the structure sitting empty. It's again, I believe, and the owners are here and they can discuss this, but I believe their intent is to ultimately, pave that entire parking lot as times go and funds become available. But I think it would be better in this particular situation to, like I said, have a business occupying that building versus the building sitting vacant. But I don't know, David, if you wanted to.
Well, I'm just going to speak to this based on 20-something years in 6 other cities. The practice was when you had a legally established building like this that met all the codes that were in place at the time it was built, and I believe this building was built in the county and then annexed, it is allowed to continue. End of story. Not continue if you fix some of the stuff. It is allowed to continue. In fact, that's what our code says. A non-conforming structure that was legal at the time it was built is allowed to continue. Now, because it's a special permit use, we're allowed to put, conditions on that if we think it's necessary. My point is sort of akin to Kurt's. This is a building that's been there a long time. It's not in the best part of town. There are many issues with the area. A building like this, the rents it can command goes down and down. As it gets older, it's more and more likely to fall into nonconformity. Every city that I've worked with or that I know about exercises some flexibility with the existing non-conforming buildings that were legally established, which is what this case is. So reasonable conditions put on the special permit, but not something that's going to create what may be an unbearable financial hardship for these folks, which I don't think that our code supports that in the first place.
So you're saying they don't have to pave it at all?
I think this says non-conforming structures legally established can continue.
How long has it been vacant?
Been vacant for several years.
And doesn't that run out after 6 months vacancy?
Doesn't say a word about that running out.
I believe it does.
Well, if you can show it to me, I'll be glad to congratulate you on that.
All right.
Mayor?
So it's frozen in time, in other words.
Pardon?
It's frozen in time. They don't have to pave it.
Mayor,
I'd be thrilled for you to show me where it says it runs out.
Okay.
I call for the question.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, we had a motion and a second to approve.
Question?
But the discussion continues unless the motion or call for question passes, correct?
Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's
You have to
correct.
vote on it.
We got a motion to call for the question. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? In that event, we'll call for the question. Okay, so the motion, restate your motion, please.
Motion was to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. That brings us to new business 4, consideration of an ordinance to rezone property presently C2 and M2 to R3 located at 501 North El Paso, submitted by Thompson Revocable Trust.
Make the motion, we suspend the rules, read by title only with short explanation.
We got a motion to suspend the rules. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Eaton. All in
Then we-
favor of the motion to suspend the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Smith?
An ordinance reserving certain realty to the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would rezone property located at 501 North El Paso Avenue that is currently zoned C2 and M2 to R3.
Any discussion?
Mayor, was that motion to read it one time only, or just have the first reading by title?
First reading.
First reading. Mayor, my discussion on this takes me back to the Main Street Downtown Master Plan that we adopted. I think this council body adopted a couple years ago. This was done, I think, during 2012. My concern on this is, as an R3, the city has no protection. We invested about $3 million of taxpayer money on this project to try to develop a corridor, to try to facilitate some development and specified development pertaining to the master plan. And the master plan expresses some concerns about R3 zoned areas, and it even states that their recommendation is to rewrite the zoning for the El Paso corridor, as in the case of the options for other downtown, this is one of the most straightforward. If pursued, it is critical that the zoning include design standards integrated into it. And that is my concern, that our minimum codes that are required on an R3 development, if this is passed, the city, no matter what they show the city, doesn't mean that that's what they have to build. And if this is rezoned and this development doesn't come back through, doesn't materialize, then that doesn't keep someone else from coming and building. Not that they wouldn't build something that we would all be happy with, but there's no requirement for them to do that. And I think that goes against what we paid almost $100,000 for a downtown master plan that we adopted that has issues with R3 zoning.
So all you're asking though, Mark, is to do it as a PUD?
Well, I mean, that, under our current zoning, I think that's the only thing that it allows. Now, I wish that something had already been done, so we were having a different discussion right now, but as the options we have in front of us, I think the PUD option is the only one that provides the city safeguards and corresponds with the implemented and adopted downtown master plan.
There was discussion at that planning commission meeting about the possibility or the thought of a PUD. In their effort to, in their proposal, I'm talking about the developers, to move this forward, the possible delays for the consideration of a PUD would make it impossible, basically, for them to move forward with their recommended structures that they were going to put on this property. And the Planning Commission discussed that at some length. And you can see the result of that vote.
I believe the developer is here, if anybody would like to ask him some questions. You might- Either that microphone or this one, please.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mac Jones. I'm with Hammond Jones Development in Boston, Texas. I can speak as much or as little as you want about the project that we propose. Can y'all hear me? But in direct answering the question, this is going to be an upscale student housing project, an upscale multifamily project that we believe will be occupied almost entirely by students. It's going to be designed and marketed for students that go to Arkansas Tech. We think it's in a great location for that type of project, and because it's the majority of the tenants are going to be students, we have to open and close the project and plan construction around the school semesters, basically. We have to be finished next summer, which if we, in order to move our kids in for the fall semester, if we were to get a rezoning, then I think we could move forward with our architectural plans and the city approvals and get permitted and go ahead and probably get started late summer, and I think we could finish the project in time. With a PUD, I just don't think that we would have time to finish in this cycle and build the project in time to finish it next fall. So it would push us back a year, and that's if we could come to an agreement with the landowner to extend the contract. I don't know that we can. I understand the issue. I mean, I understand that it absolutely is a straight rezoning. I can sit here and tell you guys that we're going to build the nicest property in the world. I think we will. But it's not binding, and that's the truth. But I will say, if we do have to go through a PUD, we will try to structure the project so that we start a year from today and finish 2 years from today. But I don't know that we can be successful in doing that. And I don't know, what the market will do between now and then, and what interest rates will do between now and then. But that's my risk. But I do understand the issue. But if it means that we have to go through a PUD, it probably kills the deal for us. I will say that we've been doing this a long time. I think we have a very good reputation in the industry. We have a property in Conway that is very, very nice. I'd love for you to tour it. But that having been said, I mean, legally we won't be held to anything, and I do understand that. And if we don't end up doing the project, somebody else could come in and build it to the minimum standards. I do understand the problem.
Would you share with us the interest, particularly that you shared with the Planning Commission the other evening about the target market and why here with this particular facility?
Yeah, so what we build is a high-end project that include this particular, we're planning 72 units, 288 beds. We will have a huge resort-style pool and exercise facility and tanning beds on site. We will be, I believe, the most expensive property in the market, I think, which worries us. But we'll have a computer lab on site. We'll have on-site management. We'll have security is very important to us. We have an on-site management company. We have an on-site courtesy officer that's usually a local police department, member of the local police department, that we give him a unit for free to park his car on site and patrol at night. We have controlled access gates. We have a high-end camera surveillance system, on-site maintenance, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. It's a very, very nice product. And we're attracted to this market because our business model is such that we go and build these projects in not the flagship school of the state necessarily, but in up and coming schools that are that we see long-term growth potential, long-term economic potential, healthy endowment, and we see Arkansas Tech as that kind of market, and we're interested in being here, but the timing's got to fit. And unfortunately, in student housing, most apartment complexes, a 2 or 3 month delay may cost a little bit of money, but if we finish in October rather than August, we lose an entire year of revenue, and that's catastrophic. So we really have to give ourselves a lot of rope because we can't control the weather, et cetera, and we just have to finish on time. So it's a chance we can't take.
Thank you.
Mayor, is it Mr. Jones? Is that right?
Jones, uh-huh.
Jones, okay. And I understand the hesitation on the PUD, and I understand, and it's kind of like we both want it, but
right.
Nobody's really wanting to put, nobody's wanting to give to let their guard down per se. How much delay or extra time do you foresee a PUD process adding to it? And I would ask, in addition to that, how much design work, how much site plan work have you already done? I presume some has been done to know what properties have been used, because there's a section almost about halfway through that you're not you don't have a contract on, I believe, because it's not part of this, so there's gonna be a warehouse sitting right in between linear footage of El Paso of this project.
What was the last part of the question? Just how much planning have we done?
Yeah, how much site work, planning, design work has been done?
We've done a basic site plan. We've done a lot. The property has a lot of issues. It's, a lot of it's in the floodplain. There are existing buildings there, obviously, which are going to have to be torn down. So mostly what we've done, we have a template that based upon a certain type of property, amount of land, we can pretty much tell very quickly the density with which we're going to be able to build. The hard part is knowing the cost is the site work. Everything below the slab are really where the questions are. And so we've done, we know that there's an easement running right through the property that we're going to have to relocate. We've done some cost takeoffs on what that's going to take. We've done a great deal of work on the major unknown, which is cut and fill, an important quality fill because of raising the building pads out of the floodplain, essentially. And a basic site plan that gives us our unit mix and number of beds. That's it. That's a lot, but that's it.
So if the city were willing to have, to have special called meetings to help facilitate the PUD process, would that set you back as much as you think?
I don't know exactly what's involved in our submissions to the city for the PUD process. My experience with PUD processes is that we're going to have to do a pretty high level of architectural design, landscaping design. We're going to have to show you exterior finishes, roof types. We're going to have to get into parking spaces and types of parking spaces and very significant landscaping requirements, all of which is fine. I guarantee that what we're going to do will exceed the current code. But we have to get that drawn. Like this gentleman said earlier, I don't know how, he said I thought it was funny, he said, architects aren't sitting around waiting for work to be handed to them. Just the drawing of the plans itself, is, if they're what I think they are, required to even have a meaningful discussion in a PUD setting, would be a 30-day to 60-day deal just to draw them and submit them. As far as hearings after that, city meetings after that to come to some agreement on items that are going to be commented on, 4 or 5 months at least, before we can agree on a site plan, or a standard of building specs. At that point, I've got to go draw a full set of construction plans. That's another 60-day deal. I've got to actually put the deal together, get it bid, et cetera. That's the way I see it. And I can't afford to take a chance, because if I go and spend the money that it takes, which is a lot, to submit to the city what the city needs to see to decide on a PUD process, and then I get 3 months down the road and realize I can't do the deal this year or do it at all if I can't restructure it with the landowner, then that's money gone down the drain.
Well, the reason I ask is, we had a previous development that somebody was working on that was presented to us on a very close proximity street, kind of an upper scale area. They were going to develop, do this, do that, and that came to us, started, and it fell apart, went away. And so, if we do this, we're left, susceptible.
I know.
We're open there
From a zoning standpoint.
and we've spent $100,000 on this plan. $50-something thousand of economic development funds.
You mean the city plan?
Yes.
City planning?
It's a downtown, it's a master plan.
Comp plan?
And so that's where concern comes from. But then my question for you is, why are we leaving out one structure, if you will, along the El Paso?
Well, we're not. We're going to try to acquire that structure, but we can go around it if we have to. Don't want to.
Can I ask a question now?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I talked to the owner of that building today that sits right in the middle of what has been zoned or being asked to be zoned R3. That particular building is zoned C2.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to that owner today, he told me that he hadn't been in contact with anyone, and that he was C2, and he wasn't aware that the properties on both sides of him and in the back had been zoned R3. Now, I know that's not your concern, but that building at this time this afternoon wasn't for sale.
Yeah, and the truth is, I didn't realize there was an out parcel. I mean, this is news to me.
I thought it was news to me until about noon today also.
And so my understanding is that we're buying all 14.39 acres, and that's what it is. We haven't received a title commitment yet, but I'll have to research this.
I can see us as a city having could potentially have an issue having R3 with right in the middle of it is a C2.
Well, and when we sent out our notices for zoning, I don't think this address was, because I sent them out myself, I don't think this address was part of the notices that were sent out.
Because have you seen, are your plans planning on being like a U shape?
No, I mean, we've just done an
Because
overlay.
this is really not a very attractive, this is kind
No,
of
it's
ugly.
not. It's absolutely not. We've
Well,
just done an
there's
overlay.
not much through that part of the street that is,
No, there's not.
so, yeah.
I'm going to have to research that issue. The truth is, I don't know.
I have a question for Betsy. I think Main Street Russellville, as I understand it, has endorsed this development. I came across something in the last day or so that said that you guys had looked at it and were in support of this development. Is that correct?
Master Planning Committee meeting. The bottom line was they felt like, worst case scenario, this property gets rezoned R3. First of all, they were excited about the development in the preliminary or example plans that were submitted, but worst case scenario, this property is zoned R3 versus the current zoning of C2 and M1, I believe. M2, that at the end of the day, it's more desirable to have that property zoned R3 versus the commercial and industrial or manufacturing zoning that it currently has. It may not be the perfect, the ideal zoning that everyone wants down there, but it's and again, this is worst case scenario. If this deal falls through, it's better than having it zoned how it is currently zoned. So, did I get it? Okay. But that's my recollection of what was discussed at the Downtown Master Planning Committee.
In answer to Mr. Richard Harris's question, that is correct. At the end of the meeting, they voted to endorse the property.
How come you didn't change the zoning on that other building?
Which other building, Mr. Wiley?
The one that's left out of this project that he's talking about?
I'm gonna claim the same defense that Mr. Jones did. I'm not. I didn't know anything about that until this evening.
Mr. Jones, I got a phone call from one of those committee members this morning, actually. He said that committee, when they voted and took action on this, they didn't know about it either until after the meeting.
That's an accurate statement. We did not know about it.
Well, I suppose what we're saying here is by rezoning this, we're still going to be much better off, whether this ever gets built or not, than leaving it as is.
It sounds like this single building has caught a few people off guard. Would it be possible if we deferred this to our June the 9th special meeting, that you might be able to get a little more information on where you're going to go with this development in relation to that building?
What is the process if approved in June on just a rezoning? Would that be approval, or is there another
This is
reading?
an ordinance. If the council is so, it deems it necessary, we can do an emergency clause and we could pass the ordinance at
Okay.
one time if we deem it necessary.
I have no problem with that.
So our motion tonight was to suspend the rules, read for the first reading only by title only.
Yes.
Have we voted on that?
Yeah, we did. That's what we're discussing now.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to point out, of course, that property may be zoned C2 and M2 and stuff like that, but presently, but I think it was at our last council meeting, and maybe one before that we labored over allowing some gentleman to put a machine shop in over there in that area because of how it's gonna look, in that particular area. I'm certainly no authority on it, but something makes me think all that property over there before long, or in the coming years, people are gonna ask to get it zoned residential type property, because that has always, even with Main Street Russellville, and that has always been the discussion, that was a core to Arkansas Tech, and that it would be developed more than likely with nice housing for tech students and the like that. So if the gentleman deal, if it fell through, I mean, I don't see why the city wouldn't be better off with it zoned R3 right now than they would with the present zoning.
I agree with you, Mr. Stuber.
Because, the commercial part of the commercial thing in that location seems to be over, or close to being over. We're with this, just like we was an issue here a little bit ago, over here on Bernice Drive or wherever it was, where we was approving a garage. It's better to have something than nothing. So, having said that, at least I feel better.
Okay, any other discussion for tonight?
Is there any other motion to be made in regard to this?
I believe the motion was for the first reading only, so procedurally, I don't know.
Who made the motion?
I did. Unless I want to make a motion to suspend the rules and read for one time only. Then we pass it tonight.
There's risk in everything. We've become real good at kicking the can down the road. I've got people asking me if I've got any toes left being on the council, because all we seem to do is kick things that make sense down the road. I'd like for us to do something else in regard to this. It's incumbent upon the people that are interested in developing this to worry about the other property that's over there. I don't see why that's even part of our discussion here. But, this is the kind of thing that Arkansas Tech and the city, and as Mr. Stuber has pointed out, that's been a vision for years. It's not something that just came about as a result of this master plan that was put into effect. I don't know.
Mr.
I'd
Smith,
like
would-
to see us,
Would you advise the council procedurally what we can or can't do?
You can make another motion to suspend the rules and read one time by title only.
well, I make that motion to suspend the rules and read one time by title only.
Second.
Mr. Tripp seconded. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. That motion carries. Mr. Smith?
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas for the purposes this ordinance, if passed, would rezone property located at 501 North El Paso Avenue in the city of Russellville from C2 and M2 to R3.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ma'am, hold on, please. Mr. Tripp, were you the second on that?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, Mr. Tripp seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
No.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Abstain.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
And I was chastised to be sure and step up to the microphone. I applaud Mr. Jones because I think this development will be a positive thing as we move forward, but I also want to encourage you all to have a broader vision. We've talked about that corridor being predominantly residential, and while it may be predominantly residential, please do not lose sight of the fact that that could be much broader mixed use with some commercial, and look at those other communities that have done corridors such as that and how that can be beneficial to the community. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, do you need us to pass the emergency clause, or are you fine with this will be effective in 30 days?
Fine with that, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Item 5, consideration of an ordinance to rezone property presently C2 to M2 for property located at 2700 block South Ithaca Avenue. Unanimously approved by planning.
Move we suspend the rules and read one time by title only.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Smith?
An ordinance reserving certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas for the purposes this ordinance, if passed, would rezone property located at the 2700 block of South Ithaca Avenue, as more particularly described in the attachment labeled Exhibit A, and rezone the property from C2 to M2.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Need to call the roll.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
and was that Mr. Eaton seconded?
Mr. Tripp.
Mr. Tripp
Yeah.
seconded
Mr.
that.
Tripp,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And you need the emergency clause on that?
we don't need to exercise that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6 is a backpack issue on that, a resolution to issue a special use permit.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Wiley, second, Mr. Stuber. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7, consideration of a resolution requiring rehab by agreement for removal of razzing 123 North Enid Avenue.
Mayor, I have maybe a procedure question on this, or a technical question on this, if I may ask it before we get into the discussion of it, because it may pertain to that discussion in motion. How does, if this piece of property is under contract to be sold, how does that affect this agreement or this process?
Well, it gets stickier, but
It doesn't really affect it. The
it was
buyer,
transferred.
well, the buyer just have to, he should do his due diligence to be aware that this is coming.
It's
If
my
we passed it
understanding
now,
that
it-
that transfers to the new owner, does it not,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
And, isn't there some kind of a full disclosure deal? And the seller's supposed to disclose it, but the buyer's also supposed to ask about it, so
Well, the stickers on the front window should say.
that should help.
Mm-hmm.
So by passing this resolution, it will enable the existing owner and/or the new owner to enter into a rehab agreement, correct?
Yes, it should be.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
We've got, second, Mr. Tripp, motion, Mr. Eaton.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, I think the prospective new owner is here. I'm not sure if he signed up or not on the list.
That's okay.
Yes, I apologize, I'm not on the agenda, and,
That's
I was
all right. You can ask a question. I mean, you can ask a question.
I was approached by the owner of this property about a week and a half ago. He's actually an employee of mine at Base Distributing, to explore the possibility of either purchasing the property from him or tearing the house down for him. He would rather sell the property. He offered me a good price, and we made a verbal agreement for that to happen. Contacted the title company to try to get that done before this meeting. And I guess when the house burned, the insurance payment was made. They released the mortgage, but they had a technical error, got the wrong book and page number. The title company advised us to get that taken care of before we went through with the closing. I guess I'm asking the council to, not take action to remove this structure for the next 30 days, give me time to close the property, and then I'll do it for you. Have full intent of tearing down the building or the house. Think I can have the property closed in the next week, and would commit to the council to be there within a week after that to remove the structure.
Withdraw my second.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Smith, does that, so if this goes through, they have X number of days to enter into an agreement, correct?
A rehab, that's 7 days.
He's wanting to remove the structure.
I know, I mean,
Mr.
If
Kirby,
you-
you would
if you need
have
more
7 days
time-
to enter into a rehab agreement, or is it 30 days to remove it,
right.
or 30 days to remove it?
Today.
Yeah, day one would start tomorrow.
Do we have a motion here or not?
I would
Yes.
turn my second.
Yeah, Mr. Tripp seconded it.
Oh, I thought I did.
It was a motion to adopt.
Mr. Kirby, do you have any does that fit your timeline?
I guess I'm a little confused. You're saying I would have to enter into an agreement with the city?
Within 7 days, and that agreement is either to remove it in 30 days, or you can rehab it, and you've got 180 days, but there's
Right.
benchmarks along the way that you'll have to agree to.
Right. I think I can make that work. Again, I'm waiting on a title company that I don't have control over, but I'm been assured that this shouldn't take, a couple days to resolve, so I think I could live within that.
Okay. Any other questions, council?
Of course, I would think that, I know we have a motion, but I would think that postponing this till, next month would be appropriate here,
Yeah,
because,
I agree.
I don't see any reason that, I'm sure that Mr. Kirby has other plans for this other than to rehab that house. And I see no reason he should be required to enter into a rehab agreement in 7 days, but, he should have adequate time to get the property closed, and he's got the equipment to tear it down and everything else. I don't see why we can't postpone this till next month.
I agree with Mr. Duper.
So can we
Mr.
amend
Clark,
the
you
motion?
want
I
to,
didn't
you've
second
got that,
it.
I want to add something, look.
He's not required to enter into a rehab agreement.
Do what?
He is not required to enter into a rehab agreement. It's just that if he wants to rebuild the house, that is a 7-day time frame. Okay, from what I understand, he wants to demolish the house.
That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
And that takes place within 30 days. Obviously, when you pass this, if he's got everything down or half of it down, we're not going to go out and issue him a citation because he hasn't completed it in 30 days. It's just that when they don't do anything within that 30-day time frame, then we start the process of advertising for the asbestos and advertising for bids to take it down. So if he's in the process of taking it down during that 30-day time frame is up, our office will still give him time to complete that, even with y'all passing this ordinance.
Okay.
I'm fine. Seriously, assuming no hiccups from the title company, I mean, I should have it closed within the next 7 to 10 days, and I'll have the building down within a week. So I want it gone just like you guys do, so.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
We're gonna have to sign an agreement.
Mr. Tripp?
Can I change my vote from a verbal vote and vote no? If I can, no.
This is the one that counts, isn't it?
It is,
One
yeah,
account.
good change.
Ms. Harris?
I think it's no. I'm confused. No? No, that he doesn't have to sign it?
That's correct. That's good.
Mr. Stuber?
No.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Wiley?
No.
Mr. Richard Harris?
No.
So I guess motion fails.
Motion fails. Item 8, consideration of a resolution requiring rehab by agreement, dilapidated structure located at 607 and 609 South Denver Avenue.
Oh, that's them 2 houses up from me.
Do we have any
The only-
discussion on that?
The only discussion, just to point, it's only for the garage structure that links the 2 houses together. It's not for the actual living spaces of those 2 addresses.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Aye.
Who made the second on that? Mr. Harris.
Apparently somebody wants to speak. Back.
Would you like to speak on that? Yeah. Microphone, please.
Can you speak in the mic, please?
Would you, yeah.
I'm Michael Gillum. I own the house at 607 South Denver. My mother owns the one at 609. The garage is an older building, probably built at a time when it was suitable, the garage was suitable for a Model T or Model A. The shed next to it is even smaller. And it ran into trouble and a huge limb from an old pecan tree fell on top. All it really needs is the roof repaired and perhaps some of the rafters replaced. So I'm not sure what decision y'all have made yet. But I would just like to ask for permission without too much paperwork to either go ahead and have it fixed or to enter, if that can't be done, to enter into the rehabilitation agreement with the city and fix it.
Do your question at the end again. You're questioning what the rehabilitation agreement is?
No, my question is, what if there's been a decision made yet, or if there's still a chance to have it rehabilitated, or without much paperwork, without the agreement, just to go ahead and have it fixed?
The decision is, that's actually what we're discussing now. Your options would be to remove the structure within 30 days, or if you will get with our code enforcement and building official, if you want to keep the structure, they'll work out an agreement with you. giving you 180 days to bring it up to a safe occupiable condition, or in this case, it's a garage, you know, a safe condition.
Well, that's all you need to know then. I'll just enter into the agreement.
Enter into the agreement? Okay. We'll need you to get in touch with, well, Brian's gone. Would you come by here within 7 days? We'll get you in touch with who you need to get with and rehab it. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there anything else?
Adjourn.
With just a minute, our public comment period.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have somebody, some ladies, some?
Yeah.
We dressed up for everyone. Guess you noticed. I am representing a group of people, seniors, who worked very hard to pass the 1-cent sales tax that included building an aquatic center. We feel we are being ignored and not considering that the way the pool project has been handled this council. Sales tax passed, year and a half. Same people on the council ruled it around over the site. The city has had a contract with ETC to design and oversee the construction of the pool for almost 2.5 years. 2.5 years. The same people ruled it around for over a construction manager. When are we going to get it going? It is very disgraceful. When it could have already been completed. I'm looking at all of y'all.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Smith, Professor Emeritus of Economics at Arkansas Tech University. I would like to follow up on what Mrs. Eaton just said. I too have been very interested in the aquatic center, or the theoretical aquatic center, and would like to point out that as an economist, I'm very concerned with the opportunity costs that we're dealing with here. I know that there are some of you on the council who have been couched in these terms and know what I'm talking about, or at least you should. Opportunity cost is the cost of doing something that would take place, as a result of doing that. Okay. Well, in this case, not doing something is what we're doing. Okay, and the cost of doing that, the cost of not doing anything, has been the time that is lost and, in fact, the inflation that is taking place in the meantime. Now, granted, that's very low right now. Doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, but inflation has been positive. As Mr. Nost pointed out this morning in his editorial in the paper, we probably have lost about 20% of what we had to begin with, if we talk about all the things, construction manager, everything that's going on now. Okay, my case is that I believe that you are doing the city a grave disservice by not moving more rapidly towards the completion of this aquatic center. We have the money, it's been passed a long time ago. We have the contracts. We now have a place to build it, as long as that took to take. Let's do it. Let's do it, let's get it done, and if we use that money that we have, I think the city might be a little bit more willing to consider an additional sales tax. But until we can show that we can use the money that is made available to us, I, for one, would not be interested in additional taxes for any reason. Thank you very much.
Okay, is anybody else signed up to speak or wish? This is a new deal we just started this year. We don't respond at this time. This is for you to talk to us, not for us to banter back and forth. We'll take your concerns under advisement and hopefully come up with an answer for you. Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion. Thank you.
These are a lot better. I don't know either. Hey, are you?